I felt isolated, alone, even knowing I had a beautiful baby to look forward to. I didn't want to do anything, but I knew I had to, so I did, but more forcibly than willingly. I felt like this during my second and third trimesters. My anxiety in my last pregnancy was due to the worry that I could lose my child like I did in my second pregnancy. I was pregnant with my first child over a year ago. It was a planned pregnancy, and my husband and I were very excited. About halfway through the pregnancy, I noticed that I would become extremely lightheaded and dizzy. My heart would begin racing, and I thought it would beat right out of my chest. I would sit down for fear of fainting. I would try to calm myself down and breathe deeply until the feelings would subside. I was never able to correlate the physical feelings with anything that was happening mentally to trigger them. I can say that in the past I had had similar episodes, but upon physical examination, nothing was ever found to be wrong with me. While pregnant, I noticed it would happen frequently, and I began to fear that the stress my body was going through may also be affecting my baby. When I spoke to my OBGYN about it, he simply told me that the baby was fine, that he could give me some Xanax and it wouldn't hurt the baby. I also said that even though I wasn't feeling depressed at the time, I worried that these anxious episodes may be a precursor to postpartum depression. I was again dismissed and offered Xanax, which I declined. I was shocked at both how nonchalant my OBGYN was about my fears and also concerns for my baby, and even more so at how willing he was to prescribe me a benzodiazepine. I wasn't even offered a referral to a therapist or anyone to talk to about what was going on. I later reached out to my insurance company to find a therapist, which was a struggle in itself, and I did not find one until 6 months after giving birth to my healthy baby girl. I didn't suffer from postpartum depression, but I did have what I was told were the baby blues, which did not last long. I hope that more research can be done on prenatal depression and anxiety, because in my case, I wasn't able to find much online, and my doctor was certainly no help at all. I felt very much alone in my struggle, which led me to worry even more when that was the last thing I should have been doing. I was very surprised to discover that I was pregnant after years of infertility. At first it was terrifying, but I was soon overjoyed that I would be having a baby. I have always struggled with anxiety and depression and was on anti-anxiety medications at the time I became pregnant. My psychiatrist told me to stop taking them. I was okay for a while, but the combination of pregnancy and a new relationship that was complicated, to say the least, as well as an over full-time course load at school, eventually caught up with me. By the beginning of my second trimester, I was experiencing suicidal ideation. And I would often find myself awake at 3 a.m. researching home abortion remedies. I didn't feel like I could talk to anyone about how I was feeling because of how I would be judged, and I knew I wasn't safe. It was very isolating. When I would mention that things were hard to test people for the possibility of confiding in them, I would be brushed off or told that I shouldn't worry so much because it was bad for the baby. Eventually, I asked my OBGYN if it was safe for me to go back on my meds, and she agreed that I should. I began to see a therapist and talk to the people in my life about what I was going through. Things got a little better, more manageable. However, the feeling of isolation never completely went away. I had anxiety before becoming pregnant. However, it was controlled. Now that I am 29 weeks pregnant, my anxiety has been out of control. So much that I had to seek therapy, and my OBGYN prescribed an antidepressant, which I don't want to take. I think some of it is hormones, some of it is uncertainty about the huge impending life change, but I do wish that people, especially medical professionals, would understand how debilitating this uncontrollable anxiety is. As a result of my anxiety, I have to work through the following emotions on a daily basis: irrational fear, discomfort away from home, separation anxiety, depression, disappointment, embarrassment, helplessness, and a loss of control. It's like duplicating your body, and you have the responsibility to keep it safe for your entire life, no matter what, even if it means sacrificing your life or yourself. It's fucking scary. Not being able to medicate with 100% guarantee that my baby would be safe was difficult. I would have rage, imagining for the first time in my life that I was bashing someone with a metal baseball bat. I would have sleepless nights early on in my pregnancy because of severe panic attacks. I had no clue what it was. My depression was much better, but my anxiety was incredibly worse. I wouldn't be able to sleep, and there was nothing I could do to calm my racing heart and mind. My first pregnancy, I had some bad prenatal anxiety. I thought there was something wrong with me because I was supposed to be so happy about pregnancy, but I really didn't want all the attention it was bringing me. A couple months after having the baby, I began to feel better again. With my second child, I was extremely anxious about the birth, as my first birth had been very damaging, and I developed devastating lifelong injuries, including pelvic organ prolapse. I had been told by a specialist for my injuries that I would need a C-section for any further children, and was expecting this when I became pregnant. To my surprise, my local prenatal care providers were extremely dismissive of my injuries and were pressuring me to deliver vaginally again, something I did not want. I didn't realize just how traumatic my first birth had been until I started to panic at the thought of being forced to deliver vaginally again. I went through a period of extreme anxiety over a weekend after a Friday appointment where an OB insisted to me that I had no right to elective C-section, even though my specialist agreed it was not elective, and even lied to me saying that no insurance would ever cover this. She said that because I planned to have repair surgery in the future, it shouldn't matter if my condition worsens. The thought of living in my broken body even longer and even more broken, I've been advised to complete my family before surgery, was devastating. I am also hoping to avoid hysterectomy in the future and can't do so if my condition gets much worse. I laid in bed for an entire weekend, sobbing, unable to care for my home or my other child. Thankfully, I was able to get in touch with my specialist that Monday, and he agreed to advocate for me, and by Wednesday, I had a new doctor who was in total agreement that I not only needed a C-section, but that women should be able to choose one regardless of medical indication. The C-section experience went on to be a great one. It was actually very empowering. It was by far the better of my two births. My anxiety in my last pregnancy was due to the worry that I could lose my child like I did in my second pregnancy.